So this month, in reference to Mental Health Awareness Month, the dome will be green. 1 in 5 Americans, as you may or may not know, suffer some form of mental illness. And Saturday, May the 5th, Baltimore will join cities across the country in recognizing National Silence the Shame Day. Together we can silence the shame, and so we will be, as you well know, working to focus on how we deal with mental illness and provide the kinds of services that we need to be providing in this city, in this state, in this country. So we're happy to be a part of that, but more importantly, coming up with solutions and so forth to deal with mental illness is an issue for us in the city. Just, I think it was yesterday or day before yesterday, we announced an initiative working with opioid addiction and getting the hospitals to take part in levels of care, because we know that oftentimes many of the individuals who are suffering from drug addiction also have mental health issues. I want to turn now to something that you may have noticed at the Board of Estimates, the $55 million investment that we will be making as a city on neighborhood investment. I think there's an interesting article in the Sun papers today that talks about how we've torn down a number of board-up houses in the city, but when you look at the net of what we've been able to achieve since 2010, because in my opinion we're not moving fast enough, the net was something like 300 houses being torn down as it relates to how quickly we tear them down and how many houses go boarded up. So we're focused on creating this fund. It's called the Neighborhood Impact Investment Fund. This is a vision that I had when I was running for mayor. I said that the city needed to invest in neighborhoods that we've not traditionally invested in, that far too long many neighborhoods have continued to decline because the city has not made the kind of investment that needs to be made. Many of our neighborhoods have not seen investment for decades, and I know you've heard me say this time and time again. When you think about riding down some of these streets in some of these neighborhoods where you now see trees growing through the roof of houses, that doesn't happen overnight. That's decades of neglect in terms of not investing in those neighborhoods. And the sad part about that is that many of those neighborhoods, you'll find individuals who lived there also for decades, who are homeowners, who are waiting for the city to invest in those neighborhoods. And so we think that this is a significant effort towards moving in the right direction to invest in neighborhoods in our city that deserve that kind of investment. So we believe that this will be a catalyst for others to invest in our city. We believe that jump-starting this investment at $55 million is what we expect to net by leasing some garages that are owned by the city, but yet still being able to collect the taxes by leasing them through Medco, and they continue to belong to the city. We'll be able to still yield the taxes. So it's a benefit on both sides. You should also know that the city is one of 6, and this really coincides with what we're doing in terms of choice neighborhoods. We're one of 6 finalists, and three will actually be chosen for the Choice Neighborhood Program, which will yield another $65 million in investment. And so we're keeping our fingers crossed that the Perkins Homes will be a part of that redevelopment for East Baltimore. Also, we probably submitted before most jurisdictions did to the governor a number of cities, a number of neighborhoods throughout the city that will result in close to about $1 billion in new investment. And it's called the redevelopment fund that the city's opportunity zones. We learned back in January this year that this program was coming about. And so what we did was immediately pull ourselves together and our program together and submitted some 44 neighborhoods throughout the city to be included in the Choice Neighborhood Program, in the Opportunity Zone Program. So that should result in another $1 billion. The governor has accepted 42 neighborhoods in Baltimore. So very excited about this investment in city neighborhoods throughout Baltimore, and again, neighborhoods like Park Heights, Sandtown areas, East Baltimore, that deserve to be invested in, will see investment in the future. Questions?
Mayor, we spoke to residents yesterday at Douglas Homes who are really concerned about the Trump, the housing urban development proposal to possibly raise rents on people who live in rent-subsidized housing. Is there anything the city can do for them, and are you going to try to lobby the Trump administration to not implement these new rules? I know it has to go through a long proposal, but there's just concern that rents will be raised, that they would somehow have difficulty.
So we're having conversations, and in fact, I'm talking with our congressional delegation today, not just about that, but about the Farm Bill, also about the infrastructure legislation that's coming out that will create another additional investment in Baltimore City. In fact, I was over in Washington on yesterday talking about the infrastructure and the water issues for the city. And I was told by one of the deputies that's working on that bill that everything that Mr. Cardin, Senator Cardin has put in has been accepted. So we're looking forward to that investment.
Are you concerned?
Oh, we're always concerned. We're always concerned.
What it means to the residents?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mayor, can you explain, the process of the $55 million for the neighborhood impact investment fund? You mentioned parking garages.
Yes. So.
Selling the parking garages?
No, we're
not that?
No, we're not selling the parking garages. Initially, when I came in, there was a proposal on the table to sell the garages, and after conversation with the comptroller, along with the president of the city council, I had already talked about creating an investment fund. And so we looked at other ways to do this. And so what we're going to do is lease the garages so that we keep the taxes on the garages, and then we'll float the bonds that will be city bonds, and that will yield us about $55 million. But we will still...
That's the source of money.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Leasing the garages to, obviously, private operators.
Medco.
Okay, all right.
And then Medco will
Yes.
put bonds, investors will buy the bonds.
Right. And we will yield
So
about...
revenue bonds.
Yes, absolutely.
Can't cities just sell revenue bonds?
Yeah, but we're already selling a number of revenue bonds for our water system as well.
Is that because we're close up on the limit of the 4%?
Yes.
Okay. So we're...
Mayor, can you comment on the fact that April was such a violent month in the city?
Well, violence is still going down in the city. We know that there was, I think the police commissioner explained it last week about the factions in our city that are at war over drugs and so forth. So our intelligence tells us what is going on in the city, but we're still trending downward.
About this again, the opportunity zones.
Yes.
Will this nonprofit that will create?
You're talking about the investment fund.
Correct.
Right.
So will all opportunity zone tax breaks go through this nonprofit then for projects?
No, the opportunity zones are what we had. So the federal government is providing money for opportunity zones, which would be about $1 billion, which we could yield in the city. That's different from the investment fund. We can piggyback off of the investments that are in the opportunity zones because we've included some of those neighborhoods as well. Park Heights is in there. As you can see, Sandtown is in those neighborhoods. So yeah, we can piggyback off of that.
So there'll be some overlay, but it won't be like the sole vehicle for opportunity zone money.
Absolutely,
okay.
absolutely.
And there'll be tax breaks associated with this?
Well, there'll be tax breaks that are associated.
Tips or...
No, we're not doing tips or pilots right now with this. The opportunity zones are what the federal government is providing $1 billion for that will come into, hopefully into our communities. But those have to be submitted by governors across the country. So we've submitted 42 neighborhoods to be included in that. The investment fund is separate. Right, and specifically geared towards neighborhoods that have been underinvested in.
So what's the criteria for those 42 neighborhoods that were selected?
Based on census tract and lack of investment and the poor communities and neighborhoods throughout our city that haven't seen investment.
And what do you hope to attract to these neighborhoods?
More housing, more recreation, more business opportunities as well. But part of it is, and I've said this time and time again, when you look at some of the corridors of our neighborhoods, whether you're going down Monroe Street or coming down from Northern Parkway down to Druid Hill, we've just got blocks and blocks and blocks of boarded houses, just too many. And, some folks say they can't even see development opportunities because we have so many boarded up houses. And we have money from the state, as you well know, to begin to tear down some of these. But, I want an aggressive plan to really move towards removing this blight from neighborhoods. You know, it's like on Pennsylvania Avenue, we build on one side and we leave boarded up on the other. You know, I think it's hard to attract investment to an area like that if you're not looking at it holistically. And that's what we want to do. We want to look at the whole area. When we think about, for example, Park Heights and the investment that could possibly be made by LifeBridge in that particular area, and then you couple that with slots impact money, now we get an opportunity to directly impact those neighborhoods and begin to, and if you haven't been up to Park Heights lately, I invite you to do so, where we're now tearing down more and more houses and really looking at how we recreate those neighborhoods in that area.
To that end, Mayor, last week there was a Heritage Crossing, I think, was sold, and there was a pilot, but there wasn't information about the length and term of the pilot or how it's structured. Would you be willing to release that information?
I will talk with the folks to have a conversation with you around that.
So you don't know whether you're...
I don't know all the information. I don't like to provide
answers.
answers.
But you release it, I mean, should it be public?
Let me get the information. I'll be willing to share what I know. Okay?
Mayor, is there any significance to the 55 million total? Is that just what?
That's an estimate, actually. That's an estimate. And that's pretty conservative in our opinion.
Stephanie Rawlings, former mayor, had wanted to use this money for rec centers. Why do you think economic development is a better use of the money?
Well, I think your article in the newspaper speaks to that issue. The fact that we have so many boarded-up houses in this city, and it's not attracting investment, and we're not making headway in terms of tearing down some of these houses and creating investment. I think you build rec centers and so forth around communities and neighborhoods, and I think to be able to do that, and now with the monies that we got, the $1 billion that we got for brand new schools, where we're tying recreation into our schools as well, and the 43 rec centers that we already have that we're investing in as well. I think this bodes well for direction in terms of how we help recreate and invest in neighborhoods that are underinvested in.
And then can we get your thoughts on the $9 million settlement today? I think the biggest settlement maybe ever for police issues in Baltimore. Jack Young suggested maybe the FOP should pick up some of the tab. What do you think? Why approve this very large settlement for this exonerated man who had been in jail for 20 years?
How many years?
I think it was 21 years, right?
So 21 years?
Yeah.
Okay.
And should the FOP have to pay for some of it?
Well, let me just say, I think that anybody who spends 21 years in jail and has spent 21 years of their life in jail unfairly deserves compensation. I don't know what amount I would put on anybody's life of 21 years. I don't know how we come to that settlement, but it is a settlement, and that's about as much as I can say.
Mayor, as you know, Senator Ferguson introduced legislation to have sort of a police oversight to investigate police corruption. The governor has not signed it yet, hasn't indicated. Do you want the governor to sign that bill, or are you against it?
No, I've never been against it. I've never been against it. What I said initially was that there was a conversation with me prior to saying that this was something that they were looking at, but it was already done. So I believe that it's moving forward. And, if a bill doesn't, if the governor doesn't sign a bill, it becomes law.
Right, no, I know. There's some talk you might veto it because of the FOP, but I don't.
I've not heard that at all. Not at all. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.